Окей, всем привет, меня зовут Тимирхан. Сегодня, как и обещал, я перевел для вас обучающее видео Кайлера Вулама. На тему становой тяги в стиле СУМО. Спасибо большое, что под прошлым видео у вас была хорошая активность. Этому видео также накидайте очень много лайков. И также я переведу для вас топ-5 упражнений от Кайлера, которые он делает для того, чтобы прогрессировать, собственно говоря, в становой тяге. Но об этом в конце. Обязательно смотрите это видео до конца и смотрим.
What's up, everyone? So we're going to kind of just go over a simple sumo deadlift setup today, the simplest way that I know how to explain it, try to make it easy for everybody. But first I'm going to give you guys a little reason as to why you clicked on this video and why I think you should listen to me about the sumo deadlift. Alright, so this is my first ever 900-pound deadlift at 206-pound body weight at the time, or 408 kilograms at about 93 kilo body weight. Boom. Hey, what's up, guys? So today I'm just going to go over a basic sumo deadlift setup and how I like to execute the lift. Now, this lift is a little bit more complicated than a conventional deadlift setup. However, I am going to use a lot of the same, cues and same setup points. So if you haven't seen my how to conventional deadlift, I'll link that below for you guys to go watch that one first. I do encourage you guys to watch that one first and learn how to do a good conventional deadlift before you move on to sumo, just because I think that's just how it should be. But before we go into the setup and all that, we are just going to need to loosen up our hips a little bit, just so we can get set up right. A couple of simple little stretches that I like to do before I sumo deadlift, just to, making sure I'm getting myself down into the right positions and able to open up these hips a little bit. So here we go. Let's go check out a couple of those real quick. Okay, so first and foremost, my favorite little thing to use to get my booty activated is going to be this little hip circle. Because obviously, if your glutes aren't activated, then you're not going to really accomplish a whole lot of anything with your deadlift. So I just shuffle like this back and forth. I'm just going an example. I mean, you can do this several times, go back and forth like this and then turn around and then walk front to back, as you see me do here. And just do that a couple times until you get those glutes burning pretty good and they feel ready to go. And then here we have some simple little goblet squats, so you can use a dumbbell or a kettlebell. With these doesn't really matter, but this is really good for just having some weight in your hands to sink your hips down a little bit, and just getting the groin and the adductors to open up a little bit, loosen up, get some blood going in there. I just do this for however many sets I feel like I need to, maybe just a couple sets of 10 or whatever, till I feel nice and warmed up in that area. Okay, so please don't shun me for doing these. I know this is traditionally a kind of a CrossFit movement, but it's kind of the same idea here. Just getting some activation going in the adductors and the glutes, and then loosening up that groin a little bit, being able to sink my hips down a little bit more, and as well as getting a little bit of tightness relief from my hamstring. So I definitely like doing these. I think they're very useful. So this one is something new that I've kind of been doing, and I really like it. And if you have access to a little belt squat machine like this, I definitely recommend using it, because it does accomplish the same thing as the goblet squat and the kettlebell swing as far as what muscles were getting warmed up. But the way it pulls my hips down, it just feels much more even. It's very hard for me to shift to one side. It's really good about pulling me down evenly right where I need to go, because I do have problems with my hip shifting sometimes, and this helps me kind of correct that problem before I start deadlifting, which seems to be a huge benefit all around. Okay, and here's another little idea that you might try out. I just kind of put a band around the bottom of my leg right there, and it pulls my hips apart. So if you feel like you need to loosen up your hips just a little bit more, just do that. Okay, so now that we got all the mobility stuff taken care of and we're a little bit more warmed up, let's move on to the setup. So the first thing we're going to want to do is obviously get our feet set up to the bar. Now you might ask, where do I put my feet when lining up to the bar? Okay, so that's probably the question that I get almost, most often for a sumo deadlift is, how far apart do I put my feet? Well, if you've never really done sumo before, I would say start off with something pretty neutral. I mean, don't go like completely plate to plate yet or anything like that. Start with something, pretty comfortable. And as far as the angle of your feet goes, a lot of people ask about that too. How far apart should I put my feet like this? Well, typically if you want, my preference, which obviously you do because you're watching my video, the further apart you put your feet, the more of an angle your toe should have. So as your feet go out, so should the angle of your foot.
if that makes any sense. I mean, because if you think about it, so stand here with your feet this wide and then have them completely straight, or just not as wide as they, or not as angled out as they should be. I mean, how much sense does that make? Because the further out your feet go, the more of an angle you're gonna have to put on your toes in order to just maintain your balance. I mean, and just utilize all your muscles correctly. It's just a little bit better way of getting set up. So now that we kind of went over that a little bit, and we got our feet positioned and set up, now I said with a conventional deadlift, you are going to kind of want to have the bar pretty much like cutting your foot in half. Now with a sumo deadlift, we're going to want the bar, pretty close to our shins. Basically just touching your shins. Go ahead and line up with the bar touching your shins. That's something that I find to typically work pretty good for pretty much everyone. So, go and get our feet set up, have a decent little angle to my feet. And then now, just to make sure our feet feel good and they're solid on the ground, what I like to do is I stand tall. Stand tall at the top like this. And make sure I'm, nice and balanced. Make sure I wouldn't be easy to be pushed over. You want to be standing here in a strong position. You don't want to make it very easy to be pushed over. So, I'll stand here like I've locked out the deadlift already. Like boom, locked out, ready to go. So now, just like with the conventional deadlift, we're going to use the weight of the bar to get ourselves set into position. And we did do the mobility stuff earlier. However, this is actually my favorite thing to do to get, to build up the mobility over time for my hips in a sumo deadlift. And I'm going to show you why, because we're going to use the bar to get ourselves set, right? So I like to start back with my hamstrings stretched like this. And then from here, I'm going to pull my hips down into the bar. And you'll notice I almost can't even get set up correctly because, as I pull my hips down and my chest comes up, I'm already applying pressure to the bar.
Okay, so what I meant to explain here was that it's hard to get set up correctly at this point because I don't have enough weight on the bar yet. And as I pull my hips down with all that pressure into the bar to get myself set up, the bar starts to come up off of the ground. So I really can't get set up correctly until I have enough weight on the bar.
So we're going to start back, pull our hips down into the bar. And I mean, just really doing this, using the weight of the bar and pulling your hips down into a good solid position, that's going to build mobility over time, believe it or not. Like that really goes a long way. So, and like with the conventional deadlift video that I made for you guys, it's going to determine where you need to put your hips whenever you deadlift. Because like I mentioned before, the position of your hips is the most important thing for your deadlift. If your hips are not in the right position, you're going to lose all your power. So, we're going to do the exact same thing. Pull our hips down. Boom. And then now, if you want to do it a different way, stand here at the top and slowly, keep your balance, maintain a good position, good posture, lower the weight back down to the floor. Right there. That's where your hips need to be when we start the pull. So that's how I like to get set up for a sumo deadlift. Okay, so now just to show you guys like from a side angle what happens when our hips aren't in the right position and how it affects the execution of the lift. So I'm going to start with our hips just being a little bit too low. And you'll notice there's going to be, a lot of slack in our entire body. We're not going to be very tight. We're not very tight, pretty much anywhere in here or in our upper body. So the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to catch all the weight. I mean, we go from not being tight, our hips being in the wrong spot, and it's going to make our hips shoot up from the beginning like this. And what you end up with is a conventional deadlift with your feet spread apart. It looks bad, it's dangerous, you're using your back too much. Now, we're going to start with our hips too high, and again, what we're going to end up with here is a conventional deadlift with our feet spread apart. Now, not only is it bad for your back, it's just not a very efficient movement. You're just not going to be able to pull as efficiently as you should be able to. We're pretty much missing out on all the muscles in our hips, which that's basically the most important part of a sumo deadlift is, the muscles from here to here. I mean, that's number one. That's the most important part. So, to show you like what a good lift looks like, again, so use the bar to get ourselves set down into position. Get our hands set, feet set, stretch our hamstrings back, feel all the muscles involved, sit down to the lift, nice and tight, no slack in your body, neutral head position, boom. So just like that. And right there we utilize all the muscles correctly that we should. And I thought it looked pretty good, so there we go. Okay, so now for just a quick little recap about what we went over now that we got the 3 most important things about a sumo deadlift, at least according to me. 1, finding where we want to put our feet. Find a good, comfortable foot position for ourselves, whatever we feel good with. And again, the further out your foot goes, the more of an angle you should have to your foot in order to maintain your balance and utilize your muscles a little bit better. So, got our foot position. Now 2, determine our starting position for our hips by using the weight of the bar to pull ourselves down into position. Finding a nice little tight spot, pushing our knees out over our toes, sinking our hips down into the bar, and boom, executing the lift. So for executing the lift, remember, it is just a simple, getting our hips down into the right spot, getting really tight off the floor, creating that push, and then pull it up to the top. Stand straight up just like that. So I hope that really helps you guys out a little bit. Really, if you just follow those 3 things, you should pretty much be able to, use this to teach yourself how to do a pretty decent sumo deadlift. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that, so. Alright guys, so that was pretty much it. That was my little sumo deadlift tutorial that I put together for y'all. Try that out next time you do your sumo deadlift workout. Let me know if you noticed a difference. Let me know if it helped you out at all. And again, I tried to make it as simple as I could.
Друзья, давайте соберем на моем канале 50 подписчиков. Я все-таки стараюсь, перевожу для вас. Как только на этом канале соберется 50 подписчиков, я перейду для вас видео Кайлер, где он показывает топ-5 упражнений, которые помогают ему прогрессировать в становой тяге. Поэтому ставьте лайки, подписывайтесь. И спасибо.